President Trump first threatened these tariffs almost exactly 100 days ago, the Liberals have done precisely nothing to make us more self-reliant. They continue to make us weak.
Today is a very good day of clapbacks. That's how I will describe today's episode. We got some news coming out about Trump tariffs, and somebody caught Justin Trudeau on something. And Justin Trudeau, the man who cannot be held to account on just about anything, deleted the post from social media. It's just too bad that, the internet really does live forever. I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated. Subscribe, like, share, comment your thoughts down below. And as always, give me a follow on other social media platforms as well.
And I think we have to be open to the idea, if you want to be a numbskull like Justin Trudeau and say, oh, we're going to do this, then tariffs are going to go up.
It has been fascinating and also equally disturbing to see how much the Canadian public as a whole, not you watching this, you're a good one, how much people are so fooled by the Trudeau Liberal government right now. Here, I'll show you this tweet from Andrew Scheer. He says, since January 20th, the Liberals have permitted 0 new major mining projects, cut 0 taxes or fees, reversed 0 tax hikes, eliminated 0 regulations, revived 0 pipelines, and signed 0 LNG deals with countries around the world. They've had months to strengthen our economy in the face of unjust tariffs from the U.S. administration, but they've done nothing to build things or sell more stuff to other markets. Here's what they have done to enhance Canada's economy, though. They've announced counter tariffs in various sectors. They've encouraged Canadians to not shop, to not travel, and to hate our neighbor. And boy, is that ever working. They announced earlier today a $6 billion aid package for businesses impacted by the Trump tariffs. And they're also going to be easing some of the requirements in order to get your EI, your employment insurance. Despite the housing crisis, despite our economy, despite our unemployment rates, they announced, Mark Miller did, that they are going to be legalizing the status of 6,000 illegal immigrants. Illegal immigrants being now legal. Huh? They've also added nearly 200 additional firearms to the prohibited weapon list. I actually came across this post from Nadine Ness on X. She says, either the Liberals actually believe Trump wants to annex Canada and Canadians need to be prepared and armed to defend it, or they know it's all false and they're just pushing the narrative to use fear to manipulate Canadians. Based on this, I go with the second.
The House of Commons has been shut down by the behest of the Liberal Party. Do we even have a sense at this point what kind of negotiations are even being made in Washington? How hard we are negotiating to stop these tariffs?
I don't think we do. I mean, what we know is that since President Trump first threatened these tariffs almost exactly 100 days ago, the Liberals have done precisely nothing to make us more self-reliant. They continue to make us weak. We have the anti-pipeline law, C-69, still in place, the carbon tax still in place, the threat of a capital gains tax increase on our investors still in place. Not one tax has been cut, not one regulation has been removed, not one step has been taken to give permission to our incredible businesses and workers to build things in this country. And so we are in a position of weakness, not only after 100 days of the Carney Trudeau Liberals, but after 10 years.
We're going to go back to that topic, but I did also want to show you Jagmeet Singh with some reporters being asked directly, will you vote to take down the Trudeau government? And his answer is just so shocking.
So am I understanding you correctly? A confidence vote is completely off the table until you get some sort of support for workers through.
Yeah, so I'll put it this way, to be very clear. We believe at this time, with the urgency of what we're up against, the seriousness of the impact on our economy, on workers, the threat to workers' jobs, the increase in cost of living, that we want to see protections in place first and an election second. We're going to have an election this year. We're ready for that. But we want to see supports for workers done first. For us, this is a matter of putting workers first An election can come second.
You know, it's interesting how the NDP party has, instead of being the party for workers, where you would advocate for things like pipelines, you would advocate for projects being built, you would advocate for less taxes, more business incentive. All of those things would be putting workers first. It would be putting the economy first, which is, you know, how workers survive. But he doesn't want to do any of those things. What he wants to do instead is support the government, who has put us in this situation economically where this is such a big deal for us. He wants to support them so that he can get a social assistance program out there. And here's the thing about socialism. It doesn't work anywhere. Sometimes it'll look like it does for a little while, but ultimately it fails every single time.
In Canada, you know, we find that they're charging us over 200% for dairy products. You know about that. And when I left, we had that well taken care of, but under Biden, they just kept raising it. Very difficult to deal with, the Canadian representatives. 250% for dairy products, tariff. So where do you hear that? You don't hear that. They have a tremendously high tariff, give you the exact numbers in a little while coming out, on lumber. So they sell us lumber. They have a tremendous tariff. They make it impossible for us to sell lumber or dairy products into Canada.
Now, don't get me wrong. I'm very familiar with all of the numbers. And so a lot of the things that Trump suggests, there's so many details to it where it's not always reasonable, in my view. However, there's this mass media psyop that Canada is just this amazing partner. We're so great. And we have been plenty of times. Absolutely. We all know that. But at the end of the day, especially in terms of trade, Canada has self-imposed a lot of things that have made it very difficult to do business here. Tariffs in terms of, you know, certain limits of what can go across the border and what can't. Taxes, all of these things have driven investment and opportunity out of our country. They have been for years. Our environmental policies are nuts when you think about it. It's impossible to get almost anything done in this country. Our own locals are feeling that on top of our foreign partners.
Some key indisputable facts. Okay, number one, Canada does have tariffs. They've had tariffs for a long time. You've seen the numbers circulating. They're quite a bit more complicated than that, but Canada has had tariffs that are significantly more than the United States. Okay, key fact number two. Canada does this as a form of economic protectionism, by their own words, while criticizing the USA for doing the same. That's why they have these tariffs, for example, like dairy. We'll get into that. Key fact number three. This actually ends up hurting Canadian consumers far more than the USA and far more than Canadians realize. Key fact number four. Free trade, meaning if these tariffs from Canada went away, would effectively mean that Canada would be the 51st state. Without these tariffs and government protectionism and artificial creation manipulation of markets, Canada would cease to exist.
We have our faults, but rather than address that, here's what Melanie Joly says on CNN.
Is the Trump administration has not only put trade as an issue on the table. They've been presenting many other things, including military cooperation, security and intelligence cooperation, water cooperation, and I could go on and on and on. And that's enough. Canadians have had enough. We're a strong country. We will defend our sovereignty. We'll defend our jobs. We'll defend our way of living.
What is our way of living that is so worth defending, though? Like, I'm not saying here that I want to be 51st state or anything like that. I love my country. Why do you think I have this channel? But what is that way of living that she's talking about? You know, our economy sucks. Our immigration sucks. Our border security sucks. Things here are failing because of your weak policies.
They want us to give them a fourth term. After 3 terms in office and 10 years of making Canada weak, the Carney Trudeau Liberals want us to give them a 4th kick at the can. Sorry, 3 strikes and you are out. We need someone else at to hit the ball, and we need to take back control of our economic destiny. That's what common sense conservatives will do when we bring it home.
So what is it that you want to defend? You want to defend continuing to tax your citizens and businesses into oblivion? You want to defend, having projects that just keep leaving the country in hordes because they aren't viable here? You want to defend no longer having a competitive market because of your own self-imposed regulations? That's what you want to defend?
What I want to say to every world leader who gets up in arms when all we're asking for is fairness and to have them stop killing our people is, please listen to us. Canada could do a lot more. Canada has been taken over, Brett, by Mexican cartels.
We don't want any of that. That's why we don't want your government in power anymore. You want to defend having an unelected person who hasn't lived in Canada longer than a few months to be our prime minister, unelected prime minister. You want to defend that.
How is it possible for Mark Carney to stand up for Canadian jobs when he's already moved jobs from our country to New York? How is it possible for him to support Canadian pipelines that might compete with his foreign energy investments? How is it possible for him to support Canadian energy independence when he has already invested millions of dollars in American coal? The answer is not possible. His financial interests run against our national interest and put us in an incredibly weak position in confronting President Trump. And make no mistake, the U.S. president will take advantage of that weakness. I should also add that Liberals want to use this crisis to make you forget. To make you forget they've been in power for 10 years and 3 terms, that they are seeking a 4th term in office. And they want you to forget that they are the ones that doubled housing costs, doubled food bank lineups, doubled our national debt, drove $500 billion from Canada to the U.S., and made us weak in the face of our American counterparts.
But they tell us that Donald Trump is the biggest threat to our democracy. And why is that? Well, because they want you to be distracted. They don't want you to be paying attention to what it is that they have done and what it is that they are doing. Keep in mind, Mark Carney is a political lobbyist. He is somebody who for decades has gotten filthy rich to the tune of dollars you and I would never make in our entire lifetime. Our entire household may not even make that in our entire lifetime. And that reminds me a lot. I was on a radio show in Los Angeles earlier this week, and we were discussing Doge in the United States and, talking about Canadian politics and a lot of the corruption that happens in our own country. And we see that right now with a Liberal leadership candidate, Mark Carney, who refuses to disclose his financial interests. He could disclose all of them, but he is refusing to. And why is that? Because he is a political lobbyist. Have you ever wondered why it is that politicians have an income of, $235,000 a year, let's say, give or take, but their net worth is in the millions? Because they are the people who are making policy decisions. When you make the policies, you know what the market is going to be, and you therefore can profit off of the market. And even if it's not directly you, maybe you have a tie-in somewhere else with a friend or whatever. Like people will take advantage of a system when they can. And Mark Carney, a lifelong political lobbyist who has made his riches on exactly that, is now going to be the man in charge of those policies. That sounds an awful lot like a corrupt and broken system to me. But you can't say Canada is broken anymore, according to the Liberals. No, everybody's saying Poilievre is so bad for saying that Canada is broken.
Because he wants everyone to think that Canada is broken. Well, Canada's not broken. Canada's the best country in the world. We're going to make it even better.
Canada is not and never has been broken. Canada is not and never has been broken.
Now, an ex-user, Dan Albus, actually remembered Justin Trudeau running on that exact same point that he is now criticizing conservatives for saying and trying to villainize and manipulate the Canadian public into thinking that Pierre Poilievre is some big old traitor, even though he ran on the exact same thing, which is hilarious.
This place is broken. Today, I'm presenting a real plan to fix it.
And you won't believe what happened next. After that started trending online, Justin Trudeau removed the post. Yep. Too bad the internet lives forever. Actually, Mark Mulrooney posted about this. He said, I hear from so many people that they would prefer that we don't point out that Canada is broken. So I find this truly ironic, as I have never seen it before. And that is actually very similar comments that I get, especially from friends and family who just, oh, it's always so negative. It's so negative. And I'm like, there is nothing negative about saying and pointing out, acknowledging that it exists. There is a flaw. Something is wrong here. In fact, that is your democratic right as a human being, as a citizen taxpayer of this country, to say that's not okay, that's wrong.
If the federal government can compensate Albertans, for example, for whatever losses they end up taking, should that be the route they decide to pursue? Why is that not satisfactory for you? Like, why doesn't that add up? Because I think to a lot of Canadians that would be one way out of it.
Well, I noticed Ontario Premier Doug Ford didn't ask for a tariff on electricity. He imposed a surcharge himself so that he could receive the money, so that he could make sure it was directed to his people. And I must tell you, there's no circumstances under which I would acquiesce to a major tariff being put on Alberta Energy to go to Ottawa so Ottawa could decide how it's distributed. And quite frankly, the trust is gone with the federal government. They canceled pipelines. They've banned exports off the West Coast. They have put in a net zero power reg. They talked about an emissions cap. So if you think I'm going to believe that they'll take $40 billion out of our economy and just trust them, that it's going to come back, I don't. So no, it's not on. We're not going to agree to that. And nor should Ontarians and Quebecers want us to, because if the Americans retaliate by putting also restrictions on energy, it's Ontarians and Quebecers who are going to be harmed by that. 100% of the product that they get to heat their homes and run their cars comes from the United States. So just know that I'm acting in the interest of all of the country and saying that you don't want to play a war on energy. Canada will be worse off for it.
But you've also talked at length about the degree to which that relationship on energy is interdependent. And in fact, that actually the U.S. benefits greatly from the discount that they're able to take through receiving oil from this country. So I understand, and I've put a lot of questions to federal ministers about all you laid out where the trust has been broken. But if a formal agreement is reached in which they promise every cent of that revenue will go back to Albertans to quote unquote, make them whole, why would you oppose that?
Well, because we've tried to get a renegotiation around equalization, because Alberta already pays $25 billion more into Confederation than we get back in benefits, and they flat out refuse. So I'm sorry, the trust is broken there. And I would say let's find a way to work on the things that we can agree on. And we've managed to get some great agreement at the table on the kind of goods that should be tariff because we can find alternatives to them. We're also acting in concert to make sure that we're buying locals to support Alberta and Canadian products, as well as to support the products with the countries we have free trade agreements with that are being honored. And so let's find areas that we can agree on rather than areas that we'll disagree on.
Even if it holds back our response, even if it holds back one of our biggest pieces of leverage?
Actually, there's no circumstance under which I would agree to another tax on Alberta that takes $40 billion out of Alberta. You can ask me as much as you like. The answer is no.
Okay, I'll leave it on that note. Thanks very much, Premier.
I'm Jasmine Lane. This is Over Opinionated, and I will never, ever apologize for saying that, yep, Canada is broken. And that means that there's something to fix and somebody to fix it. And that person is not going to be the same people who have put us in this mess to begin with. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment your thoughts down below, and of course, give me a follow on other social media platforms as well. I will talk to you tomorrow.